Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Renegade Operative coming back at you with another early first impressions for the masses. This time, we're tackling the dystopian and ritzy cyberpunk city of Glass, complete with shady politics, overbearing authority, and a touch of the uber violence. Welcome to the world of Mirror's Edge Catalyst, where one wrong misstep could be your last. However, the main question you might be wondering today is how good this game was in my opinion. Is it worth the price of admission at $60? Let's just cut to the chase and let's begin in my first impressions illustrated within. For the story presentation, I didn't particularly have a lengthy time getting invested towards the story in depth. I will say that given my first experience with Mirror's Edge, my experience with Faith Connors is largely unbeknown. The reboot in question, however, did do a serviceable job with what was presented in the demo. You start off as a mere prisoner before your eventual release. However, the progression of the game does a good job in letting you know immediately the city of Glass is in a chokehold of law, control, and authority. You'll see shady men with shark-eating smiles and propagandas. You'll see civilians harassed. You'll see that even the cutting-edge technology works against the favor of the people. I like that grip of unease, however it can take easy realization that these could be fancy nuances that ultimately could divert the plot in a direction for better or for worse. We'll wait and see what happens, but for this verdict I think the underlying setup is commendable, while the characters themselves only seem to serve as conversational pieces rather than wholehearted friends that could add more to this entry if they weren't a little lackluster. The gameplay was a little disjointed for me when it came to playing Mirror's Edge Catalyst. That's not to say that the parkour doesn't hold some substance in post-pounding chases, but there's other aspects not fully realized or done to nigh perfection. In essence, Mirror's Edge is a first-person parkour experience. You'll be using Faith in various ways to trek through some of the more dangerous terrains when it comes to buildings and jumps. Railings, scaffoldings, and maintaining the high ground are all there when it comes to a tight situation and you're trying to escape. I was slightly appeased how the parkour system displayed no room for error when the bulk of your challenge is what you'll be facing here when it comes to jumps, going against the odds, and trying to beat the clock. Any mistimed jump or improper grab is something that will spell the end for your challenge run or main mission. One thing I wasn't appeased about with the various gameplay offerings, however, was how the combat was a borderline slog to press through. Surely you'll have a nice variety of attacks. This all ranged within an assortment of light attacks, heavy kicks, and the ability to actually attack while in full sprint. However, it just seems like when it came to implementing these mechanics, it was an afterthought, and a lot of things went south with it because of this. This presence is immediately felt when a chain of clunky controls is pounded into each punch in absolutes. They're not precise. They aren't as truly tight as you will want them to be once you engage with enemy patrols. To add further dismay, the dodge mechanic really puts restrictive hindrances on the player, especially on various rooftops. You'll see security patrols gallivanting around, and one dodge while engaging them could easily cause you to fall off a ledge. One more enemy nightstick to the face connected in the process of this wonky means of evasion, and I was left thinking maybe the combat desired should have been fantastically left on the cutting room floor. Maybe there will be a day where a system for deep first-person melee is perfected, but today is not that day. Outside of a few disjointed scraps, jumping like Human Frogger, and doing missions, there's not much left to behold from the gameplay aspect when it comes to replay value either. The graphics are actually pretty cool. Every detail seems to have been sharpened for the eye to behold inside and outside of cutscenes. There's a nice cyberpunk feel to the world which does its job with the Frostbite game engine making every nook and object stand out in serviceable detail. The frame rate runs at a targeted 60 FPS. However, one very damaging issue is the frame drops that tend to frequent the cutscenes usually. The game itself during gameplay runs swell, but it only seems to clock out and give up the ghost when a cinematic is presented. This is something that I would propose EA should fix pronto and immediately. The user interface is extremely clean, and there might not be much detail to merit here considering its lack of a UI entirely. This is not necessarily a bad thing with having an extremely clean interface. The only time things pop up is during a mission where you might see a random text box generated to tell you what to do. I think it's a good design choice because obviously you'll want to see things more clearly when timing jumps more correctly. For the stage design, outside of the opening level, the stage design isn't as extravagant as you would like to believe. Now, there is attention, don't get me wrong, there is attention to detail, and you'll get that kind of sense of vertigo when performing all your parkour insanity. But among a constant blur of rooftops and the descent into the city, nothing will really stand out at your attention for eye candy. With the objective markers, you'll get a straightforward sense more often than not, instead of newer locales never tackled in a Mirror's Edge title. If you played the first game, then you'll probably get a sense of more of the same sensation when it comes to how the environments are tailored. Nothing is really dynamic, secretive, or sleek to report for this one, which is definitely a dead ringer to the first game. It's a little bit too much at times without anything to really stand out. For the sound and effects, I honestly did like the sound of Mirror's Edge. It was decent. It was very ambient, so to speak. You'll have a lot of stuff going on in the background, and really the music is very minimal. It's like a dead low. It's a dead low hum throughout the entire experience, and you're wondering like, alright, am I in danger? Do I have to really get out of here? It really ramps up when the action is going on in place, and I like that. I like the fact that when the music does come into play, it's when you're in danger, it's when you're on the verge of being captured, it's when you're in combat, you know what I mean? So I like the placement of particular music tracks that they have, and I wish more games would do that. But in terms of sound, you know, they were pretty serviceable. You jumped, you know, you punch people, you hit armor, you know, it felt like you were packing punches behind that. So overall, I think the sound design for Mirror's Edge was nice, and it is pleasant to the ear. The voice actors were just okay, nothing really stellar, nothing really groundbreaking. You won't have Last of Us quality voice acting in this game, and it's kind of a downer considering the fact that they have these fully realized characters, they have this fully realized actors portraying the characters, and it doesn't feel like it has any weight to what they say. It feels like what they're saying is pretty carbon copy. Go to point A and go to point B, you know, do this, do that for me, like you're a carrier boy. So again, the voice acting might not be that strong, but the sound effects are pretty passable. For the action and control segment of the game, it's almost like a lingering bundle of simplicity from a casual observation when you pick this up for the first time. To properly explain what this means is that once you fully complete the tutorial, you'll have all the wall running, jumping, and clambering observations down to a buttery smooth method of easy muscle memory. I do applaud the simplicity of how the controls are relatively fluid in conjunction with face movements, yet this all comes back to how contaminated this game gets when it comes to the fighting. It's like the movement is tainted to a sluggish Marquis of Queensberry rules only brawl, where half the time you're goaded into believing how ineffective your actions are to the enemy, if you're really hitting them, if everything is really being dodged and ironed out in terms of the controls. It's like the controls has high points when it comes to the amount of parkour that's in the game, and it has an equal amount of lows that wraps around like a sore thumb when it comes to contextual combat. It has an unnatural grasp behind it. It takes getting used to, but if you can get past that negative factor, then you will love its easy to pick up and play notion. For game difficulty and balance, this will be a short segment because honestly this game isn't that much of a hurdle to overcome. It's actually pretty easy, even by the flaws of its own design. The most you'll have an issue with is the heavily armored guards that take more than a few hits of pain to take down, or relatively mistimed parkour moments where if you fail, you'll fail to nail a building to building gap. Otherwise, this game is not really much of a challenge unless you're devoting that required time into beating the high scores with many races that are present in the game. My overall verdict is that Mirror's Edge Catalyst has certainly mastered some aspects of free roaming parkour. This might yield some satisfying results when you're traversing the landscape, but overall it feels very unordinary in other places when it comes to other design choices in the game, like hand-to-hand combat. This game feels like there's not going to be much meat on the bones in terms of content either, because there were only races offered in the demo, and that was really the only satisfactory thing when it came to going against your friends or going against other players. Coupled in with some very uninteresting character types and a frame rate that chugs harder than a wingless butterfly when it comes to cutscenes, and you might just want to reserve your $60 investment away from a somewhat decent offering instead of a finely made dish. I'd only recommend Mirror's Edge Catalyst for the most hardcore amongst the Mirror's Edge fanbase. Otherwise, I give Mirror's Edge Catalyst a C-. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you found this as an informative review, and I will do more in the future. I have a Let's Play coming up pretty soon that I'm still doing in the process. I gotta do the second part of the Ninja Gaiden Sigma playthrough. So that's what I have on the table, and if I bring any surprises, I will let you guys know. Until then, my name is Renegade Operative. I am signing off. Take care. Peace out. See you later.